Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome into my latest video. What I will be doing today, as I'm sure you know since you clicked on this video, is I'm going to be speaking about the impact of the news that we've gotten over the last couple days of Joe Flacco taking over as the QB1 in Cleveland, which was expected, and Daniel Jones taking over as the QB1 for the Colts to start the season. With that being said, I'm not going to waste any time. I am going to go ahead and dive into this video. This should be a relatively quick video for you guys. Basically, what you can expect is I'm going to speak about if Joe Flacco and Daniel Jones are rosterable at this point. What does this mean for their running back room? What does this mean for their wide receivers and their tight ends and their impact on the upcoming fantasy football season? With that being said, I'm going to start with the first piece of news that we got, which came from yesterday, which was when Joe Flacco was named as the starting quarterback for the Cleveland Browns. As I mentioned, this was an expected move that they were going to go with the veteran that got them to the playoffs a couple seasons ago. Now, what does that mean for Joe Flacco as a fantasy quarterback? No, I don't think you should be going into your drafts in the lead up to this season, leaving with Joe Flacco. What I think that how I view Flacco as a fantasy quarterback is he needs to show that he can play like he did with the Browns 2 years ago. You don't want to see how he played for the Colts in last season. Now, if he does show that he can play as he did within that offensive scheme underneath Kevin Stefanski, like he did in 2023, then yeah, Joe Flacco could become a streamable option when the matchup's right. He could be a potential guy that you could turn to when your quarterback is on a bye when we reach that point of the season. But one thing you do have to keep in mind with Flacco, which I'll mention with the wide receivers and tight ends, is unless like they are like in playoff contention at the halfway point of the season, if they're winning games, which I don't really see happening for Cleveland, they're going to want to at some point see what they have in Shadur Sanders and Dylan Gabriel, the two rookie quarterbacks that will be on the roster. So my expectation is at some point one of those players, if not both of those players, will be playing in games for Cleveland. So yeah, that's where I view as far as Flacco is that he just offers, he's not worth a roster spot right now, but he maybe could work himself into streamable contention, and then we'll have to just see how the season goes for him, and if he's going to be staying in as the starting quarterback for Cleveland. Now, what does this mean for the running back room? I think this is actually good news. Yeah, Joe Flacco maybe could sling it like he did a couple years ago, but they're not going to want to have Joe Flacco win them games. They're going to want to control the clock on the offensive side of the ball. So I do think they're going to lean into a heavy rushing attack, which should benefit the running back room. A rookie running back for Cleveland, I talked about him in my running backs to target late video. If you haven't seen that, that came out, a few weeks ago. Go back and watch it. But I'm still high on Dylan Sampson, the rookie out of Tennessee. The latest report was from last week when they had the joint practices. He was taking majority of the RB1 snaps. So it actually does sound like Sampson will likely start as the Cleveland's top running back on their depth chart. Now, how much does Jerome Ford work into the touches? We'll have to see. With that being said, Dylan Sampson does have a tasty matchup as a running back against the poor the poor Cincinnati Bengals defense. With that being said, though, I still want to see how many touches he can get. But there's a possible that Sampson could work himself into a flex play as soon as week 2. I'm not going to rush him into the lineups just because I want to see how this offense is going to look at least in week 1. As far as Jerome Ford, he's still worthy of like a late round stash pick, because if this doesn't work out with Sampson, if Sampson has some rookie struggles, Jerome Ford is the veteran of the group. He's the guy that understands the offense. He's been there for the last 3 or 4 seasons. So they always can turn to him and start giving him touches. Now, Quinshon Judkins, if you guys are unaware, he had his case dismissed, but Adam Schefter reported that the Browns might not sign him until the NFL investigation wraps up. So Judkins, in my opinion, I don't think he's worth a draft pick at this point. We don't know how long the NFL investigation is going to go. And then say that NFL investigation does go into the season, he's still going to need a ramp-up period. He's still going to have to practice and get the offensive scheme that he's missed this completely entire preseason. So as much as Judkins has the high talent to take take over the touches in this Cleveland Browns backfield. Until he's on the field practicing, I don't think he's worthy of a roster spot on your fantasy rosters. As far as the wide receiver room in Cleveland, obviously I think Joe Flacco benefits them because he does know the scheme. He can put up yards and production in this offense as long as he doesn't play like he did for the Colts last year. There's only two guys I would keep my eyes on as far as the wide receiver room in Cleveland. Jerry Jeudy's a guy I think is definitely now worthy of a draft pick, worthy of a stash option on your bench. He will battle with David Njoku to have the most targets week in and week out, but I do believe if Jerry Jeudy starts to see 7+ consistent targets from Flacco, you start to see that chemistry work with them and they start putting up week in and week out production. I can see Jerry Jeudy working into himself to be a wide receiver 2 in a starting lineup on fantasy rosters this season. As far as Cedric Tillman, he's a guy I mentioned in my year 3 wide receiver video that I did I think maybe over about a month ago, which if you haven't seen, by the way, selfless plug, go back and check that. But Cedric Tillman is basically a year 3 wide receiver I have my eyes on to start the season. I don't think he's worthy of a draft pick at this point. He's just a guy that you want to monitor on the waivers. So if you start seeing Tillman produce in the first 4 weeks, maybe that's a guy you pick up to stash on your bench if you don't have great wide receiver depth. So keep an eye on that name. As far as David Njoku, the news of Flacco makes me trust him as a tight end 1, but can I trust him for the full season? But with that being said, as long as Flacco is in the lineup, I love David Njoku as your tight end 1. They should have chemistry from 2 years ago. In 2023, David Njoku had his best career. That was the year that Flacco took the Browns to the playoffs. But now you do want to keep in mind, Flacco wasn't the quarterback that whole season. There was Deshaun Watson to start the year, then Dorian Thompson-Robinson took over until I think Flacco came in, if I remember correctly. I did actually look into it. When the Browns went on a 4-game winning streak at the last it was like right before week 18, I think, when they went on their 4-game winning streak to get into the playoffs with Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco was the starter for all 4 of those games. In those 4 games, David Njoku had 28 catches for 373 yards and 4 touchdowns. Now, like I mentioned, he's going to be the red zone threat. He's going to get consistent targets with Flacco. Now, the biggest concern, which I will say, is like I mentioned when I talked about Flacco, if the Browns aren't winning games this season, it's just a matter of time until either Dylan Gabriel or Shadur Sanders are in the lineup and the Browns are seeing what they have in those guys to see if they maybe need to go get after another rookie quarterback from next year's class. So yeah, that wraps up the Joe Flacco impact on the Browns fantasy options. Moving into the news that came out this earlier today, that Daniel Jones will be the quarterback for the Colts. Now, Shane Steichen said he's going to be the starter for the season. Keep in mind, when Flacco took over for the Colts last year, Shane Steichen said that Flacco was going to be the starter for the remainder of the season, and then Flacco floundered, and AR was in the lineup, so there's still a chance Anthony Richardson could take over in this spot for the Colts. With that being said, same going down the same order like I did with Flacco. Starting with Daniel Jones, I have him as a kind of similar viewpoint. I don't think he's rosterable. I don't think you should be leaving your fantasy drafts in the coming weeks with Daniel Jones. Now, I do think he's kind of like Flacco, right? He does offer a chance to become a streamable option when the matchup is right and when there are bye weeks that could be a quarterback that you could turn to, because he does have the skill players around him that can help him produce through the air, and then he does have that rushing ability, which gives him a little bit of a higher floor as a streaming option at the quarterback spot. But before he can maybe become a depth option, he just like Flacco, he just has to prove it. If maybe this is where he turns his career around. We've seen this happen multiple times with players in new spots, whether it's Baker Mayfield, Geno Smith, Sam Darnold. That seems to be like a theme in the NFL over the last 4 or 5 years. So maybe that can be Daniel Jones could be the next quarterback that can revitalize his career with the Colts this season. As far as what this means for the running back room in Indianapolis, it's going to be Jonathan Taylor that's going to dominate the touches. I actually think because, I mean, yes, Daniel Jones will probably have they're going to run like some little quarterback reads, RPOs and stuff with Daniel Jones like they would with Anthony Richardson. I just think they would run more designed runs for Anthony Richardson, which would take away Jonathan Taylor's touches. Also, too, they like to like last year when Anthony Richardson was in the lineup. There's a lot of like quarterback powers and stuff like where Anthony Richardson would take a lot of goal line touchdowns from from Jonathan Taylor. I don't think that's really going to happen. I think this move with Daniel Jones, I think is going to impact Jonathan Taylor in a good way, because Jones's rushing ability will still help open up rushing lanes, and I think Jonathan Taylor is going to be able to score more touchdowns in the red zone when the Colts get down there, because I think they're going to trust Jonathan Taylor to punch it in over over Daniel Jones. So I am just as high as I was when I did my running back tier video, when I mentioned that I trust Jonathan Taylor as a running back one. I still do trust him regardless who the quarterback was. One name to keep an eye on for the Colts in case is their rookie running back from Kansas State, DJ Giddens. I've liked what I've seen from this kid in the preseason. Tyler Goodson got hurt this past weekend. It sounds like he'll be able to come back at some point, but that leaves the opportunity for DJ Giddens to take over the backup role. So if you do draft Jonathan Taylor and something happens with him with a potential injury, DJ Giddens would be the guy that you'd want to turn to as his handcuff. Now, as far as the wide receiver room, I don't really trust the wide receivers with Daniel Jones as the quarterback. I do think their ceiling kind of drops a little with him as a quarterback. So what does this mean? I mentioned in my tier video that I thought Alec Pierce was like worth a depth option pick. I don't think so now. I wouldn't want to leave with Alec Pierce just because he's more of a downfield threat. He fits the big arm of Anthony Richardson. He made those plays with Joe Flacco last year. I don't think we're going to be seeing a lot of deep shots down the field with Daniel Jones. So what the guys I think are rosterable at this point are Michael Pittman and Josh Downs. Pittman kind of showed some chemistry this past weekend in the preseason game with Daniel Jones. He did connect with him, I want to say, on at least 3 catches. Some of them were down on comeback routes as well. So I do think there's a potential where Michael Pittman can work himself back in. I'm still high on Downs as a wide receiver 3. And as a year 3 wide receiver. And the reason why I like those guys is they do fit Daniel Jones's like skill set. Daniel Jones is more of a short to medium passer. That's kind of where you get the routes where Downs and Pittman can work themselves open. So I think they're both worthy of a depth as a backup option. I'm just not trying to play those guys to start the season. I want to see how this passing attack will look with Daniel Jones. And then if Pittman and Downs ever get hurt, then you can maybe turn to an Alec Pierce or an A.D. Mitchell off the waivers. But like I mentioned, wait 1 to 3 games until you probably put Michael Pittman Jr. or Josh Downs in your lineup. Now, as far as Tyler Warren goes, I'm higher on him than where I did my tight end tier video, a little over a week ago. I am higher on him now this season. Regardless of who was named the quarterback this year, I think this kid is going to produce. I am so impressed with what I saw out of him, not only when he was at Penn State, but just out of this preseason game. He was getting himself open. He will run over a guy for the extra yard. And I think the reason why I liked him, no matter who is going to be the starting quarterback for the Colts, is because no matter who played in the first 2 preseason games, whether it was Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson, they were looking at Tyler Warren. They were targeting him. And he has so much talent that Shane Steichen will develop packages that will get the ball in his hands. So I think he has the potential still, regardless of who the quarterback is, to finish as a top 5 fantasy tight end this year, because I think he's going to see some consistent targets in Indianapolis. So yeah, that wraps up my video, guys, for the impact on the fantasy football season with the news of Joe Flacco and Daniel Jones as a starter. Now, there is one starting quarterback competition that hasn't been determined yet. That's with the Saints. I'm not going to do a video, guys, on that, because how I viewed Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed is the same. It's going to be no matter what. Like, I just think they're maybe worth of a depth as a bench dart throw, but I'm kind of staying away from the Saints this season. So I won't be doing a video on that. Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any like shocking trades where fantasy relevant players get traded. But if any injuries happen or if a trade does happen, I'll try to hop on and do a quick video for you guys. Other than that, the next time you'll likely see me will probably be, I think I'm going to shoot for next Thursday to do my season prediction video that I do every single year. And then when we get to the week of the season, of course, I'll be doing on Tuesdays my top waiver wire targets and streamable defenses videos, and I'll be continuing on Wednesdays doing my top starts and sits videos as I've done over the last 4 or 5 years for you guys. But yeah, I wish you guys the best of luck in your drafts. If you have any questions ahead of your drafts, feel free to reach out, and I always try to get back as soon as I can. Peace out.